Hello and welcome to AI news that you should know about for the week of November 7th. I'm your host, Ashley Coffey.
And I'm Daniel Hill. Here's how this works. Every week, in just about 15 minutes, we cover the AI news stories that you absolutely need to know about. This week, we'll be talking about Apple's agreement to pay Google $1 billion per year to power Siri using Google's Gemini. We'll also talk about xAI employees and how they were asked to give biometric data to train Elon Musk's AI girlfriend. We'll talk about OpenAI launching a $38 billion AI training deal with Amazon, and OpenAI finally releasing the Sora app for Android.
We'll be covering all of that on our show today, but first, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back. Let's dive in. Our top stories this week are Apple to pay Google $1 billion yearly to power Siri with Gemini. So this is a major deal that could make Google's Gemini the brains behind Apple's next-gen Siri. So this is coming out of TechCrunch, and we'll link the article if you want to read more into it. But to give you some indication of why this is important, it's a big move for Apple because Apple had also considered using AI models from OpenAI and Anthropic earlier this year. But after they tested the models from all three companies, Apple chose to move forward with Google. I will say Gemini has been hitting the benchmarks almost consistently on the top tiers of all of the open source benchmarks that are going on. So it makes sense to me, and it doesn't surprise me that Apple decided to go with Google. So according to Bloomberg, the overhauled Siri is expected to launch next spring. However, since the launch is still months away, plans for the revamp can change. But the custom AI model's $1.2 trillion parameters, this is a measure of the software's complexity and capability, would far exceed the level of Apple's current models. So for a little bit of background context, the current cloud-based version of Apple Intelligence uses 150 billion parameters, meaning Google's model would be roughly 8 times more complex. So very interested to see what happens with this. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
I'm still confused how a company as big as Apple, with $1 trillion market cap and tons of products and innovation over the past, 30 years, is so far behind in the AI race that they are bringing in Google in order to do it for them. Siri's been around, I'm guessing almost 12 or 15 years, if I'm not wrong. So they've had plenty of opportunity to improve using an LLM over the past 3 years. It's shocking to me that they're throwing in the towel and saying, okay, we're going to need to bring in a lot bigger guns. All the team and resources that we have, we're nowhere near where we need to be.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. And I think that had to do with the past 7 years of Apple. You'll see a lot of leadership transition and refocusing. Like Angela Arendt came in from Burberry, 8-9 years ago to try to make Apple more of a luxury place whenever Hermes had a partnership for the Apple Watch. So I think they're trying to stabilize and figure things out, which might as well get onto a passing train that's doing it well, i.e. Google. But however, I will say there's some problematic things that stand out here because of some of the information and it's publicly available about how Google trained its AI models in the early days, like Llama. And we talked about that just a little bit in regards to character.ai. So we'll see what happens, but come on, Apple, time to get with the game when it comes to Siri and making it actually work well.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, so we will stay up to date on that one. But the next one that I want to cover is really big. xAI used employee biometric data to train Elon Musk's AI girlfriend. This is coming out of The Verge, which we will link in the show notes if you want to read more about it. But Elon Musk's AI company compelled its employees to submit their own biometric data to train its anime female chatbot. Its name is Annie, A-N-I, and an anime avatar with blonde pigtails and an NSFW setting was released over the summer for users who subscribe to X's $30 a month Super Grok service. After testing it, reports have been coming out that it's a modern take on a phone sex line. So this is highly problematic, as we could think about. But at a meeting in April, xAI staff lawyer Lily Lim told employees that they would need to submit their biometric data to train the AI companion to be more human-like in its interactions with customers. And lastly, employees that were assigned as AI tutors were instructed to sign release forms granting xAI a perpetual, worldwide, non exclusive, sub licensable, royalty free license to use, reproduce, and distribute their faces and voices as a part of the confidential program, codenamed Project Skippy. The data would be used to train Annie as well as Grok's other AI companions. So, what the what is what I want to say. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
I'm right there with you. This is a huge, incredibly violating ask of your employees. And even in the article, some employees balked at this request, saying that, what if our face or likeness is sold to other companies or used inappropriately in ways that we don't agree with, or used in deepfake videos or other things? Why would you require your employees to do that and make that an expectation? I would be deeply disturbed if I was an employee of this company, especially if I was asked to have my likeness used in this way.
Yeah, it's awful. It's egregious. It's disgusting. And it's very greedy because the only country right now that currently protects people's likenesses is Denmark. So I'm hoping that we in the future can have some type of ownership over our likeness. But anytime you see a long contract like that of sub-licensable, royalty-free, non-perpetual, like run the different direction. And also just there's so many things that we could talk about that are wrong about that, but I'll leave it at there. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be talking about OpenAI strikes a $38 billion AI training deal with Amazon. And they also launched its Sora app on Android.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our stories. The first one has to do with OpenAI's $38 billion AI training deal with Amazon. Just as a little bit of background, we talked last week on the show about how Microsoft is loosening its grip on OpenAI. They dropped the requirement for Microsoft to be the exclusive cloud provider, and they also gave up the right of first refusal. And last week, OpenAI completed its for-profit restructuring, and they announced the new deal with Microsoft that gave Microsoft the rights to OpenAI's technology until they reach the point of AGI, Advanced General Intelligence. With this new agreement, OpenAI had the ability to work with third parties to develop some AI products. They can release certain open weight models. And we also talked about how they will be able to release a hardware product unrelated to Microsoft to get all of the profit from that. This new deal that we're talking about now also includes OpenAI's commitment to purchase another $250 billion of Microsoft's Azure services. Now, with all of that background, OpenAI has signed a deal with Amazon Web Services for $38 billion that gives OpenAI access to hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA GPUs to power its AI models. This will be a 7-year partnership. OpenAI can start using AWS immediately on its AI models and plans for further development. So this is news, but since OpenAI is purchasing $250 billion of Microsoft Azure services, that $38 billion for AWS seems pretty small in comparison. Ashley, what do you think of this whole situation?
It's kind of wild to see it happen in real time, right? This just goes to show how quickly things can change from week to week, day to day. I feel like we're going to see a lot of this, honestly, just in the next coming year of these negotiations that are trying to take place. And trying to negotiate the future is hard when you don't know what the future looks like. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that here.
Absolutely. And the last story to talk about today, OpenAI has launched its new Sora app on Android. OpenAI launched Sora originally on iOS in September. The app got more than 1 million downloads in the first 5 days. If
Mm.
you haven't had a chance to use Sora, it lets you create AI content of something starring yourself or your friends with its cameo feature, and it lets you view a feed of AI generated videos. Now it's available on Android, so I have had the chance to test it. Now, it came out yesterday. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. And I was really struggling to get it to create any content that looked like me, even though I uploaded my likeness. I took the pictures, the video, I said the words that you need to say in order to have it create the cameo of you. And I
Mhm.
realized earlier today, in between the time we were preparing to record this podcast and now, that I was using the app completely wrong. You can't just say, create a video of me skateboarding, whatever. you actually have to tag yourself and then create the video. So I have actually learned how to create a video with a likeness that looks like me. I'm having fun with it so far. I'm going to have a lot more fun with it now that I know how to actually use it. I feel a little silly that I didn't know. Ashley, have you had a chance to use Sora, and what have been your thoughts?
Yes, I have had a chance to use Sora. One, I'm so glad that you have an Android and you're able to explore this since you don't have an Apple phone. So I love Sora, and I think you touch on something really interesting here. One, it's not ashamed. You shouldn't be ashamed of not knowing something because you'd be surprised. A lot of people don't even know what Sora is. So just consider yourself lucky that you know what's going on. So with Sora, I think it's been a really compelling engine because I remember whenever the head of Sora came out and said that they were training their data on publicly available Instagram posts and YouTube. So I feel like they've had plenty of humanization data, and I've had it produce some pretty accurate looking, like business related videos for me. Like I'll ask it like, hey, I'm never able to get footage of when I'm out and about doing like business consultations or workshops or what have you. So maybe I'll put in a prompt of like, make a 2-second sizzle reel of me in front of an audience of professional entrepreneurs or business owners and using expressive gestures to communicate a point. The more accurate you are, the better. But if you get into a point where you're not getting what you need, take a step back and make sure that you're learning, you're taking the time to learn how to do these things because that's where the frustration comes in.
Well, that is it for our AI news that you should know about this week. And now, Ashley's AI tip of the week.
So I would love to give Banu from Andrew Dollar a shout out for this tip. So if you're using ChatGPT, don't forget about temp chats. Temporary chats are a great tool to use for random questions. And these chats won't appear in your history or be used to update or train OpenAI's models. So let's say you have a random question that doesn't have anything to do with you as a person or the context of your life. That would be a good option to use a temporary chat because sometimes the information that you're using for these chats, it's saved in memories. That's how it understands more information about you. So like think of it like a newborn. As a newborn gets older, it starts to accumulate more memories. So with this temporary chat, it's a great tool. I'll use it when I'm in client workshops. So that way their information doesn't become infused in mine, but they're still able to see a unique use case in the moment. So I recommend using temporary chats whenever you need to do something random and you don't want it to appear in your chat history.
How do you actually start a temp chat?
Yeah, so it depends on where you're at. It could be on the desktop app, it could be on the phone app, or on the desktop or the browser version. But you're going to go to the top left-hand corner and you're going to click on New Temporary Chat. So it's the shortcut on a Mac is Shift Command N. And if you're on your phone, and you open up the OpenAI app, and maybe I can show it on screen. Click on the little, it kind of looks like a magnetic lasso here.
Hmm.
And that magnetic lasso creates the temporary chat, as you can see here. So just look for the little magnetic lasso. That's what will help you.
I love that. You can find links to everything we've discussed in the show notes, and you can connect with us on social media. We'd love to hear what you think of the show and how we can make it better. You can find me at Daniel Hill Media on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube.
And thank you for listening to today's episode of AI News That You Should Know About. Don't forget to subscribe to be notified when new episodes go live. And if you like watching a video of us talking, you can find our YouTube channel. So don't forget to smash that subscribe button to be notified when new episodes go live. But if you're curious about taking the next steps of implementing AI in your business, reach out to me. We love talking to entrepreneurs and business owners on how to properly and ethically implement AI to increase efficiency and profitability. So we'd love to hear from you.
That's it for today's show. Thank you for listening, and come back next week for more AI news that you should know about.